Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by Genesis House, FirstNet, built with AT&T, and the Friends in Recovery Community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction. Join our hosts,
Podfather,
Jersey Ed,
and Noontime with Skylar Noon,
as they speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery.
Hey everybody, welcome to Friends in Recovery Podcast.com. I am Mike Miles, the Podfather. I'm here with my good friend and companion,
Jersey Ed, guys.
in a certain way, in a business way.
In a business, nah, we're friends too, Podfather. Come on.
Oh, we are definitely friends.
Yeah. And Skylar is missing today. Noontime with Sky is missing. She's
a day without
around.
Skylar is kind of gloomy, but
I know. You got to deal with me today, Podfather.
it's all right.
I know. Hey, real quick, I want to tell you who's going to be on our show. KJ Foster. She's the founder and CEO of Fostering Resilience. We're going to bring her on here in a minute, but we do have to talk about a couple things, Podfather. I want to talk about the help at friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. That's how you can get a hold of us. And also we're doing we can't forget about this, the shout outs, send us your sobriety dates and your name, and we will give you a shout out. It doesn't have to be from this month. It could be from any month, any month, any time of the year. Just give us, your Ed C, 27 years. And that's the other thing. I celebrated 27 years last week, Podfather.
I know you did.
Yeah.
Amazing. Did you get a 27-year medallion?
No, my wife usually gets them for me, and she will be getting it for me. And I did not get it, but yeah, that's kind of what was going on last week. So give us your thank you. And look at a KJ putting up the little the balloons or the
I'll see him.
Yeah, exactly. You have to come on to YouTube to see what she just did. But that's the important part of this, Podfather, is that we share our sobriety, we share our experience, strengths, and hopes. We share what worked for us, so it can be passed along, to the rest of the world when they start getting sober.
Good point.
And the other thing too, Podfather, is our phone number, 617-379-1163. That's 617-379-1163. That's if you want to say hello to us. If you want to call in with your sobriety date, that's great also. However you want to do it, just get it to us so we can let everybody out there in Friends in Recovery world that we're doing this. And this is usually Skylar does all this stuff, but go to our Friends in Recovery Community of Support page and Friends in Recovery podcast page, and like us, follow us, and all that stuff. And there's a new challenge out, Podfather. I'm going to share a screen with you guys real quick. This is the challenge that we are doing right now. If you guys are on YouTube, you can see this, or if you're on Facebook Live, Friends in Recovery 30-Day Coin Challenge. It's a zooming through recovery coin with Bill and Bob on the front, and saying this too shall pass. Unity, service, and recovery, and Bill and Bob have masks on. And if you attend 30 of their Friends in Recovery virtual meetings, we will send you this coin. That has to be our meetings, Podfather, the meetings that we do. And you can get a list of them on our Facebook page. You can get a list of all that, all over the place. So I have the coin here. Also, this is the live coin here. If you guys can see that, it's a pretty good coin, pretty cool coin. So what we do is you come on 30 meetings, not 30 days, just 30 meetings. There's 2 meetings a day, 7 days a week, including our alumni, our meditation, and our yoga classes that all count. You guys keep track of how many days you have. It's on the honor system. Email Stacy B at genesishouse.net. All this will be in the show notes, and we will send you a coin. How cool is that?
That's awesome.
Right? So now that I did all Skylar's stuff and I did all my stuff, Podfather, how you been?
Wow.
Because I'm sick and tired of talking right now, I'll be honest with you.
I've been very busy. My business has been, my practice has been extremely busy.
Good.
For some reason, I think it has to do with this covert and people staying home. But anyway, help as many people as I can and do the best you can. That's all.
That's it. That's all you can do. So, well,
How you
speaking of people who help and do the best that they can is KJ Foster. KJ is the founder and CEO of Fostering Resiliency, family program director of the Beachcomber Family Center for Addiction Recovery, best-selling author of The Warrior's Guide to a Successful Sobriety, and Fostering Resilience, right? Resilience for the family in recovery. I'm sorry, it's been one of those days. She's also she's also authored numerous articles and books and book chapters. KJ presents locally, nationally, and internationally on the topics of addiction recovery, compassion, drug abuse prevention, mindful meditation, shame, and spirituality. KJ earned her PhD in counseling education, is a licensed mental health counselor, certified addiction professional, advanced certified relapse prevention specialist, trauma specialist, and professionally trained in mindfulness meditation and compassion focused therapy. She also has a YouTube channel dedicated to helping individuals and family members, providing free education, meditation, and meetings. Welcome to the show, KJ. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's always very surreal when this is the second time that I've done a podcast where the person has read my entire bio, and it always feels very strange to hear all of that because
A lot of accomplishments.
Almost 13 years ago, July 20th, 2008 is my sobriety date.
Oh, congratulations.
The world was a lot different.
Sure was.
My world was a lot different
I bet.
than it is today.
So I'm guessing you didn't have the PhD, you weren't the licensed method, any of that stuff before the July.
No, I had a master's degree in mental health, but I wasn't a licensed mental health counselor yet. So I did have that.
Got it.
Going for me at that point in time. I had accomplished that. But everything else that you just mentioned came after my sobriety as a direct result of my sobriety.
Yeah.
So,
and Podfather, you could attest to that because you have some letters and numbers and things behind your name too, Podfather.
Yep. My sobriety date is October 17th, 1986. Wow. And that was moons ago. And I've accomplished a little bit since then. Mm-hmm. Without sobriety, there might be some letters, but there'd be no, may not even be, probably wouldn't be here, you know?
Yeah. So I think that one of the most beautiful things about sobriety, at least my recovery, has been the ability to really be able to be the best version of myself possible and to accomplish these things that I never thought I could possibly accomplish prior to my recovery.
Also help, when you help people the best you can, you don't always get the thank you notes or the accolades, and that's fine. But when you do see a success story or somebody, let you know that you're part of this success story, that to me is like a bag of gold,
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
KJ,
you've certainly accomplished quite a bit, and your bio is really it speaks volumes about all your hard work, and dying to hear you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. KJ, talk a little bit about what it was like before, just a quick little, like your use and what brought you to this place, where you're at today.
Well, I guess I would be I would describe it and probably be classified as a high bottom. I always.
Is that your cat jumping on your desk?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We love cats.
Cat friendly.
My experience was that I never missed a day of work. I've always had a very strong work ethic, which is probably directly related to how I've been able to accomplish what I've been able to accomplish. So I'm a hard worker. And so I never missed a day of work. I spent many, many years as a social drinker. And I look back now with that different lens, and I can see how I drank alcoholically in a lot of circumstances. So it was in the making, it definitely was there. I have it in my family. There's a lot of, contributing factors, but it wasn't until I experienced a trauma in my life. I was married for a long, long time, together with my ex-husband for 22 years. He was the first one to experience an addiction in our family, and our relationship ended as a direct result of that. Codependency was my first addiction, trying to control his addiction, his behavior. And then, interestingly enough, I started to develop my own issue with alcohol post that relationship, post the divorce, through that experience. And my son at the time, we had 2 sons together. My older son and I sort of dealt with the situation in the same way. And we were on this parallel path to coping with life through drinking. And with him, it was drinking and his drug use. So then as his addiction progressed, my codependency became worse. And as a result of that, if which I'm sure the both of you do, about codependency and the progressive symptoms of codependency, I turned to alcohol more and more and more to deal with the insanity of the situation, and wound up becoming addicted myself. And it wasn't until I experienced getting arrested for a DUI that is what brought me to a place of that was my bottom, I guess. At least it put me in a position to get help for myself in spite of myself, if that makes sense. Like, I got sober in spite of myself.
I'll show you.
I know. I was just put in a position where all the things had to happen in just the right way for me to have experienced what I experienced. I made I think the one decision that I made that really changed everything was when I had a blower put in my car. I was on probation for 9 months, and I made the decision, you know what, I'm having trouble stopping on my own. I'm going to go and participate in 12-step recovery, because I know that I can't do this by myself. I need support. I need other people. I need accountability. And I decided, since I'm going to be on probation for 9 months and I have this blower in my car, I'm just going to commit to stopping for 9 months. And in those 9 months, I'm going to dedicate myself to doing the program 100% and just giving it my all. And as a result of doing that and with the intention that when the 9 months were up, I was back to living my life, drinking, doing, going back to my old life, so to speak. Right. And as I got better, my son got worse. And when I was 9 months sober and I was off probation and they took the blower out of my car, my son was at the worst he had ever been. And so I was starting to be able to deal with these situations sober, that I didn't have to drink in order to be able to cope with life. And I was actually coping with it better than I ever had before, even though he was the worst he had ever been. And he wound up getting sober when I was 14 months sober.
Wow. Good. That's a great story. The old saying, bring the body, the mind will follow,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this. I'm a retired police officer, 35 years. And for 28 years, I worked the streets, and I was sober a few years, and I'd go to meetings and I'd hear people from the podium talking about, if I didn't know the cops in my town, I would have been here sooner. Every time a cop stopped me, they'd give me a break because they knew me or my dad or my mom. And, and I think back into the 80s when I was a young guy, all the people I stopped. Back then, we would drive people home. We would have taxis come get them. We wouldn't necessarily arrest anybody that was drunk unless there was a car accident, somebody was hurt, or there was property damage. Other than that, we'd give people an opportunity to, to go home in a taxi, would keep the keys to their car at the station or whatever. Of course, none of that happens nowadays, but I liked what you said about being able to being responsible with that blower, and that kept you, you had no choice. You had to stay sober.
The other thing that you mentioned here is that KJ, is that you never missed work. That's crazy, because that just throws us off. Like, hey, listen, I'm so responsible. I never missed work either. I could be hungover, all that stuff. And that, I'm sure, played a role in you staying out a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because another part of the story, I mean, I have a really long story. It's been a lot of years. So a part of that was that I attempted to get sober for 5 years prior to actually getting sober. I had right after my divorce, when I started to recognize that my drinking was getting out of hand, I was exposed to AA for the first time ever. I never knew that AA existed. I never knew. And it was at that point in time, back then, it was like the only game in town, so to speak. You know what there weren't any other, at least that I was aware of.
Yeah.
But I thought it was wonderful. I had probably a different reaction than a lot of people have to AA. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like there's this group of people who are all dedicated to not drinking. And the foundation of the program is honesty. Like that's fabulous. Little did I know.
right up your alley.
Yeah, right. But I was a little naive. I was very naive going into it. That's so funny. the minute things sort of, because it's people, right? And there's all different types of people. And I hadn't experienced any consequences other than the internal consequences, of knowing that something was not right within me. And the minute I didn't like something that somebody asked me to do, or somebody, otherwise got me upset, I was out. I was like,
yeah, it's my way or the highway.
Right. I didn't have anything. I didn't have anything really anchoring me there. You know what I mean? It was just like the minute I was uncomfortable and I didn't like what was going on or something somebody said, I was out. I was like, I don't need to be here, kind of an attitude.
Yeah. KJ Foster, we're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back from the breakout, because we could probably spend 3-4 hours on what it was like.
Right.
Now we wanted to see where you're going now. We really want to talk. I know Podfather and I were talking about your relapse prevention and trauma. That's something that really interests both of us, is the relapse prevention. That's such key. It's so great. And then some meditation. We'll talk about your meditation stuff. So on the other side of the break, we'll get into all that. And Podfather, you want to take us to the break?
Absolutely. Friends Recovery Podcast.com. We'll be right back.
You're first. First to respond. First to put others' lives before your own. And in an emergency, you need a network that puts you first. That connects you to technology, to each other, and to other agencies. Built with and for first responders. FirstNet, the only congressionally authorized wireless network for first responders. Because putting you first is our job.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Friends and Recovery Podcast.com. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles, and we're back from our break.
Yes, we are. Podfather.
Jersey Ed, do you have something?
Jersey Ed. You figure after 3 years, we would probably figure out how to do this.
No, not we. No, not we. I do my part.
You figure I wouldn't figure how to do it. Well, not 3 years, Podfather, 2 years, because because I didn't get my nickname until almost a year into the show.
Right.
You were Podfather right from the beginning.
I picked it up right away.
You did.
I just liked it. Yeah.
You did. Absolutely. But Podfather, speaking of shows,
talk to me.
You know what time it is, Podfather?
It's sober pod time.
Yes. Sober pod time, baby. Right. We need music here, like some kind of. I gotta get music,
right?
Horns,
Bumpers,
Carl, Ellen,
saxophones,
and Chelsea, sober pod guys over on the left coast, and turn your dial to the right, of course, and make sure that you listen to SoberPod. And those guys have really been supporting us. Carl's a great guy. Carl's getting into some ACA stuff now. He's very open about it on his show. And they're bringing a new kind of a new vibe to the show with ACA stuff. And the cool thing that they're doing, guys at Podfather and KJ, is that they're doing, it's called the other 23 hours. So, we go to a meeting, we listen to a podcast, whatever it is, we're at a, for an hour. And then what do we do with the rest of the day, the other 23 hours? And they've been working shows around the other 23 hours, which is really cool. So, and Carl still curses and he still does his thing and all that stuff. So, but listen to SoberPod. You can find them they're not on YouTube, but find them on any podcast catcher and give a listen. Great show. Tell them Friends in Recovery sent you.
Okay.
KJ Foster, the founder and CEO of Fostering Resilience, right? Resilience?
Yeah, resilience.
I want to say resiliency because it's like that's a buzzword now, resiliency. So welcome back, KJ. We were just going over some of your past and now we want to go over all the good stuff, which that was some of the stuff that led you to the good stuff. So
yeah.
Podfather, you had a question for her about a few things, right?
Right. When Ed read your bio earlier this afternoon, we were talking. I love the part about. I want to hear about the relapse portion. It's just so important because a lot of therapists will tell their clients that relapse is part of recovery, and I don't like putting that out there. I mean, it is frequent. Frequently it happens, but I don't think it should be part. I don't think any of us want it to be part, especially the loved ones or even the active alcoholic or addict. But unfortunately, it is part of it. But we always hope it's not. So take it away.
Well, I like to talk about it with families because I work a lot with families. I have from the very beginning of my career. And I do believe it's important for them to know because really when you think about addiction, a substance use disorder that's severe, like that's when we're really talking about addiction. It's a chronically relapsing disorder. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like generally speaking, when we're attempting to recover, there's going to be some relapses along the way that don't have to be full-blown relapses, but generally maybe slips. So I like to make sure I prepare the family members for that because the way in which they respond to a relapse can absolutely influence whether that relapse continues or whether that individual is able to get back on track relatively quickly. So I think it's an important discussion to have with family members and not disillusion them, to the extent of being like, oh, well, it won't if you just like that, it doesn't have to happen, but in most cases, it's going to be a part of the recovery process.
And we know that as therapists, and we know that for being around it. My point is, for me personally, 99% of especially drug addicted young men that I treat, they relapse. But I don't until they do relapse. I always tell them, if you do, you contact me, but I don't keep touching on it because I don't want that. You know how it is as an addict and alcoholic. We know that we want to relapse. We want to break
line.
Right. And if they think there's a chance that, well, they understand I'm going to relapse. I'll relapse Saturday,
Right.
So any excuses. Yeah,
exactly.
But for the family, it's an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
It can really make or break somebody's relationship as well.
Right. Absolutely. But go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of my experience with relapse prevention, I was very, very fortunate to be exposed to a gentleman named Terry Gorski very early in my career. He just passed away this past year, 2020. Yeah. But when I first started in the field, I was just shy of about 2 years, and I totally changed careers. And at the time, my husband was working at a treatment center as a therapist where he got sober, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
that's real cool.
Yeah. And he introduced me to the owner of that treatment center. And I was able to start doing groups on spirituality. That's how I started. But then right away, the owner knew of my experience as someone who has family members, my experience with my ex-husband, my experience with my son, and they immediately tapped me to working with the families.
Right.
And so I also was doing that from almost the very beginning. I was meeting with family members during their family program. And then I got introduced to Terry, and Terry, I was lucky enough. He came into our facility
Wow.
to train everyone in relapse prevention. And I was lucky enough to be able to be paired with him to conduct relapse prevention groups for our IOP program twice a week for 2 years. I trained with him, and I just started to notice some things at that time when I was doing it. I manualized his program for him.
Wow.
At that time. And I started to notice, because I was learning at that same time, a lot of things happened like all at once. I was exposed to Brene Brown's work, her TED Talk about shame. And I started to apply that information to the clients that I was working with, the shame resilience. And I noticed in our relapse prevention groups that there were a lot of shame triggers that were being identified, but that we weren't really doing anything other than allowing them to talk about it to reduce that level of shame. And so I decided for my PhD dissertation, my research project, that I wanted to incorporate shame resilience into the relapse prevention program. And I also wanted to incorporate, even though we were doing meditations, here and there, I wanted to incorporate it as a structured process of the relapse prevention program. So I combined Terry's CBT exercises that I adapted somewhat with shame resilience and with mindfulness meditation. And as a result of that, I did a research project, and the really interesting, I could go on and on about that, which I won't. I'll just tell you the really interesting part about it is that there's such a huge correlation between relapse risk. I measured relapse risk, psychological well-being, and shame. And shame is directly correlated with relapse risk. As we were able to bring the shame down, relapse risk went down and psychological well-being went up. So
that
what
makes
I've
sense.
done,
That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And I started to notice that the individuals, which is how I sort of came about wanting to put this whole program together, I started to notice that the clients that I was working on shame resilience with were doing better with relapse, in terms of relapse, than other clients. So I was starting to just sort of notice this with the clients that I was working with. And what happened since then is that I've taken that program, that relapse prevention program, and I've applied it to my own fostering resilience program. And I apply it to working with family members. And family members, I have a family recovery workshop. And as a part of the workshop, at the last component of the workshop is relapse prevention. And usually in just about every family workshop I conduct, somebody will say to me, a family member will say, why do we need to be doing a relapse prevention plan?
Right.
Because you can relapse. Like,
Yes.
This is all about you changing your behaviors and you looking at ways that you can change that are going to better support your loved ones so that they don't relapse. Because when you relapse into old patterns, codependency, old behaviors, then you're contributing to making it more difficult. Like, clearly, I always emphasize, if your loved one picks up and they drink, that's their responsibility. It's on them. But you certainly can make it more difficult on them without even often realizing that you're doing it.
Questioning them all the time. And, it makes so much sense. And what I love what you're saying, because it's a family disease. People do not understand. They want to get their loved ones. I usually see people that are in the emergency room, or they've been arrested. I get a lot of stuff from the courts, but the family usually doesn't understand. It's a family disease. Everybody's affected. It's just not the addict. It's not the alcoholic. Good stuff. I love hearing this. Good stuff.
I can't tell you guys how many times I heard my son or daughter, on the phone, my son or daughter needs help. They relapsed again, and I'm sick and tired of putting money into it, and I'm sick and tired of doing this, and I can't do it anymore. But how much does your treatment program cost? Like when, and I talk people off the shelf, like, listen, enough of spending money on some of these on your loved ones. Let's put them into a treatment program that doesn't cost, or it's going to run the state or whatever, because it's time for you to heal too. I mean, is that kind of what you get into also with the family program as far as that goes?
Well, sure. I mean,
make him understand that piece. Anyways.
We talk about codependency boundaries, enabling, detachment, all of that.
Yeah.
But I think one of the concepts that family members have a hard time kind of wrapping their heads around, because there is a level of denial that's there with the family members as well. And there's shame that's present, family members, having a loved one who's addicted. So they're being impacted and influenced, by that experience of shame. And so what they have a hard time grasping sometimes is their own need for recovery, that they are, because they don't want to hear, there's already that level of guilt, right? That is there. So I know when I started going to Al-Anon and I was told, you didn't cause it, you can't control it, you can't cure it. I did not buy the you didn't cause it part. I was like, I know that I contributed to it. But that's me.
Main factor. You weren't the main factor of the
right. I wasn't the main factor, but definitely there were things that I was doing, like enabling, that were contributing to it. So I'm very much an advocate and a proponent for families getting their own help. I wish there were treatment centers that would pay, like insurance companies would pay for family members to be able to go to treatment, because there would be, the success rate would go through the roof. I think if family members were able to get their own treatment.
I know. I agree with you. The refuge up north from you. I went to a great codependency program in Bowling Green, Kentucky, the Bridge to Recovery. I mean, amazing programs out there, and they're all out of pocket that a lot of people can't afford.
So expensive. In Tennessee, there's one too that's really popular. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Shoot.
Anyway,
I know it too. I was there.
But it's hugely expensive. And so, the people that really need it are the people that can't afford it. And yet having something that they can, I offer a free family recovery training series on YouTube. That's a video series. At least they can go on there and can watch a series of videos that will help them, because they really just need their own education. They need their own support. They need they need the three key factors, in my opinion, that anyone needs in order to recover, whether that's the individual themselves or the family member. They need somebody to educate them, to guide them through the process, to help them. They need a support system that is going to help them through that process. And they need, and this is where people fall off the rails, because they don't understand it, or they have biases relative to it, is spirituality. And when I talk about spirituality, I'm talking about mindset. Like you're just in this negative, just like when we're in active addiction, we are in this negative mindset. And family members get in that despair, right? That hopelessness, that anger, that resentment. And when we're living in that, what I call the swamp, it's not only hurting us internally, mental health, physical health, emotional health, but it's contributing to our loved ones' inability, their struggle as well. So,
addiction's a threefold disease: mental, physical, spiritual. Nobody hears the spiritual part. If the government, long before this epidemic or pandemic of COVID started, we had an opioid epidemic, bar none, one of the worst ever. Nobody wanted to look at it. Nobody cared unless it was their kids or their loved ones. If the government could spend 1/10 of the money for opiate addiction in people, family members, and addicts as much as they've spent for this covert fiasco. I think we would have solved it. And it's still going on. You know, people don't even want to look at it, but it's still going on.
81,000 people died last year of an overdose. That was just the ones that were kind of tracked, and that doesn't count the ones that died somewhere and they found or whatever. You know what I mean? And I think the ER visits went up 19% last year. Why the ER visits for the normal people for the colds dropped dramatically, like almost 90%. So, the overdoses went up almost 19%. I was reading this article. So
really sad.
I know, it is sad. I know we have only a couple minutes left here, but I do want to talk to you about your mindfulness meditation. That is so important because what you guys were just speaking about, the spiritual piece of things, the spirituality, the understanding of who I am, my mindset, where I need to be to move forward in things, the positive mindset. I believe this is directly where it comes from. I meditate in the morning. I'm very mindful. When I meditate, I'm very mindful about throughout my day. And that has just increased my recovery tenfold. It just shot it through the roof. And my everyday life also, not just my recovery life. So I really want to hear a little bit about that. I know we don't have much longer here. We all have to run.
I'll try to address it really quickly. I can say that mindfulness meditation absolutely transformed my life. It is what really helped me to go from very low emotional intelligence, so to speak, emotional ability to handle and cope with emotions, to being able to have that peace and serenity and be able to respond to situations without acting out in negative ways to hurt myself or others. And that, we do that. You don't have to be struggling with a substance use disorder to do those things. I mean, people overeat, people overshop, people, there's many different ways that we can respond, right? Right. So I started to learn about the neurobiology of the brain, and that really solidified it for me. It makes sense to me in terms of, like, if you know about the prefrontal cortex and how mindfulness meditation helps to strengthen the prefrontal cortex, which is what regulates the emotions and the intellect. If I don't have a strong prefrontal cortex, which is weakened, by the way, through the process of drinking and drugging, if I don't have a strong prefrontal cortex, that means my emotions are blowing through and taking over, and I'm just reacting. I'm not able to really rationally think through what I'm doing, what I'm saying, any of my actions or behavior. And that ability to strengthen the prefrontal cortex and be able to pause and sit and think through something before I act out in a way that's going to be detrimental to myself or somebody else is huge. It's huge.
So true. True.
It's to me, it's one of the essential skills. And it's really one of the things where when people enter into 12-step recovery or some other recovery program and they're physically sober, but they're not working on that. They're not meditating. They're not working on that emotional piece. They're still miserable and angry and reactionary. And you see them all the time, right? In meetings where somebody will say that they have 15, 20 years sober, and then they react in a way where you're like, wow, that's sobriety.
One question for you before we close about meditation. Now, when I meditate every morning, 10 minutes at least in the morning, my mind races and it keeps going and going and going. And what I realize is that it's okay for your mind to race. Just get out of the thought, get back to the breathing, get back to the now and here and now. But I realized what it did, those thoughts are okay to come into my head because I'm not reacting on it. Like this morning I was meditating. I'm like, oh, I got to go check this on my email. I got to do this on my, and I didn't do that. It's not like, okay, all right, I got to go check. I didn't do it. I sat there for another 10 minutes and then went away. I don't even know what the email was that I had to check. Is that correct? How that works? Is that what?
See, one of the biggest misconceptions about meditation, specifically mindfulness meditation, is that the goal is to eliminate, right? To get rid of the thoughts and to not be thinking to have this clear mind,
Mhm.
which first of all is an impossibility. Like we can't, maybe if you're a monk and you've been like practicing for years and years and years, you might be able to reach that state. But for the average person,
Right.
and especially somebody who's in early recovery, like that's not going to happen.
Lot
The
to overcome, yeah.
goal
Right.
is to be, that means when you're sitting there meditating and you're noticing that's
Right.
like a magic moment of awareness. Like you're having an awareness. My mind is racing. Like I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking of that. The goal is to be able to sit with it and experience
Right.
it
Yes.
and not have to react,
Right.
or
Right.
just be able to sit and notice it and be with that feeling, whether it's a positive feeling, whether it's a negative feeling, or whether it's just neutral.
Super.
And the more that you practice that you're able to just sit and I tell people that struggle with meditation, I'm like, don't even try to meditate. All I want you to do is just sit for 2 minutes and just be silent.
Yes.
Like just sit and not, be
Right.
focused on your phone, like, on your
Right.
computer, whatever it is. I just want you to sit and be with yourself. And that's where they start. They just start with this, okay, let me just sit and be present in this moment.
Yeah.
And then they
KJ,
go from there.
You've been a great guest. Hopefully we can do this again. This is, I wish I had taken notes actually.
Don't worry, I've been taking notes,
But I'm going to be
Podfather.
listening. I'm going to be listening to the show because I am going to take notes. You've been
Absolutely.
a great guest. Boy,
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
Thank
you've
you.
enlightened me so much.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
good
KJ,
stuff.
thank you so much. And that last explanation about I always get asked like I can't meditate. I don't know how you do it. I got
Right.
these racing thoughts in my head, and you try to explain it, but nobody understands it until
Right.
you do it. So thank you for that explanation. We
Right.
really appreciate it. I would love to have you back. I would love to have you back as going deeper into meditation, mindfulness meditation. I think we should do a whole show on that. So I'm going to get in touch with you, and later on down the road, we're going to get you back on here if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so
Great,
much for having
great.
me.
KJ Foster, the founder and CEO of Fostering Resilience, was our guest today. A wonderful guest, Podfather. She was amazing.
As
I could just listen to her forever on all this, but we do have a time frame here, but we'll get her back, Podfather. Your thoughts before we close? Anything, Podfather?
Well, my microphone came undone there.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
A great guest. Usual, you find these guests that it's almost like it's just amazing. We learned so much. I mean, I've been doing therapy for 21 years. I've been helping people, and just having a guest like this is just more tools in the toolbox. You know what I mean?
That's it. So, well, guys, and KJ, I'm going to put everything before we go, and I'll have Podfather close out. How can they reach you? How can you get a hold of you? And I'll put all that stuff in the show notes, and then we're done.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do you want to? You want to tell
need
us?
me to
Yeah,
say it?
yeah. Let them know. Let them know.
Okay. So my website is www.drkjfoster.org, or you can go to frprogram.com, Fostering Resilience, FR, and my YouTube channel is under Dr. KJ Foster, Fostering Resilience. So
Perfect.
Those are the different resources. Was there anything?
Well, we do post your meditation every Monday. I think it's every Monday. Stacy puts it on our Facebook pages. So look for it over there.
Yeah. So I've now expanded my my posting. So every Monday, it's either a meditation or some sort of other educational piece. Like I think this Monday it's going to be on enabling.
Okay.
And I usually try to alternate like a meditation with a piece of educational information. And then on Thursdays, I post a meeting, an actual meeting that is conducted for people who may, 3:00 in the morning, there's no meeting, they can go on and they can watch and listen, meditate, attend the meeting.
Great.
And then on Saturdays, I post, now I'm doing music meditations. So just music, because my husband is someone who a part of meditation is finding what works for you. And he loves music. He can only meditate with music. So I thought that might be helpful for people to have music meditation.
Good. And of course, check out the show notes and our Facebook pages, and you get all this information on KJ Foster. So Podfather, you want to take us out of here?
Super. Yep. friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. Stay sober,
everybody.
This concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House, FirstNet, built with AT&T, for supporting those on the path to recovery and keeping this valuable resource free for all our friends in recovery. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Brought to you by Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery. If you can't get enough of Mike, the Podfather, Jersey Ed, and Skylar, you can catch them on Answering the Call, the First Responders Podcast, available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and GenesisHouse.net.